Heaviest snow winds on Long Island, the brutal wind chills making the digging out even more difficult and more dangerous, but no choice because all this is turning to ice.
Scientists are issuing dire warnings as New York's legendary resilience is tested by a storm so powerful, so abrupt, and so unrelenting that even the most seasoned experts are left stunned. Across the Empire State, from the heart of Manhattan to the echoing shores of Lake Erie, across the Empire State, from the heart of Manhattan to the echoing shores of Lake Erie and Buffalo, an unthinkable transformation is underway. Streets once alive with the mess of daily life, clattering subway cars, the thunder of traffic, the pulse of millions, have been swallowed by an avalanche of blinding white. Chest-deep snow, towering drifts. Across the city, families huddle in darkened apartments, isolated and anxious as the roar of the monster storm builds through the night, eclipsing every memory of winter that came before. The toll is staggering. Over 50 lives lost nationwide. A curtain of snow descends so thickly that sirens are muffled. Emergency lights glow eerily in the icy glare, and entire city blocks become indistinguishable in the monochrome chaos. This is not simply a severe storm or a once-in-a-generation snow event. It is an unfolding urban emergency marked by fear, uncertainty, and a chilling new scale of risk. The sharp crunch of snow underfoot is replaced by an oppressive silence as New Yorkers contemplate destruction, not just to property and infrastructure, but to the expectations they've held about safety, about shelter, about the very character of winter itself. What's happening here isn't just a statistical outlier or a quirk of seasonal weather. It is a full overtaking, a complete overwhelming of daily routine, and a resetting of boundaries long assumed permanent. Emergency alerts now arrive with alarming frequency. Power outages cascade block by block. In some neighborhoods, even the simple act of opening a door becomes a struggle against a wall of ice and snow. The urgency is real, the danger is mounting, and millions find themselves caught within a moment that no forecast or memory can fully explain. If New York, city of skyscrapers, of engineering marvels, of relentless determination, can be engulfed so completely, then the question must be asked: what force, what set of conditions could trigger a breakdown of preparedness and overwhelm the very heart of America's urban infrastructure? The danger does not stop here. What surges on the surface is only the most visible frontier of a much greater crisis. Beneath the snow-choked avenues, in the substratum of New York's ancient foundations, more sinister threats begin to build. As the monster storms snow mounds higher, immense pressure accumulates, not just atop roofs, but along the hardened arteries of the city. Underground water mains groan, steam pipes strain, and the hidden labyrinth that keeps the metropolis alive stands on the edge of failure. Freezing temperatures burrow deeper with each passing hour, setting in motion unseen strains on structural and technical systems that keep the city functional. Outside, above the skyline, winds howl and hurl drifts with a ferocity rarely seen in the region. Is tested in ways few have ever imagined. The city's legacy of grit becomes a daily trial, where heat is no longer assumed but must be earned back inch by inch, and every resource, every emergency crew is stretched to the limit by this unrelenting onslaught. Water finds its way into every crack, expanding, freezing, threatening to wrench apart the careful seams of a city built to withstand everything but this. What is it about this monster storm that defies every expectation and leaves even the most experienced meteorologists, urban planners, and first responders scrambling to keep up? What mechanism turns a blizzard into a catastrophe of such magnitude and speed, but every previous benchmark for danger? The answer, scientists reveal, lies in a rare and fearsome synthesis of the atmospheric and the terrestrial. It is a collision of cold, moisture, jet stream dynamics, and urban complexity, where each element amplifies the other, feeding a self-reinforcing cycle of destruction. Record snow rates become more than a meteorological statistic. They are the shock wave of something far larger and, if not reckoned with, potentially transformative for cities across the globe and for New York right now. The only certainty is that the worst may not yet be over. Subscribe now for eyewitness accounts, real-time investigation, and the critical updates you need to stay ahead of the storm's next move. This is not a storm to watch from a distance. This is history unfolding in real time, and you are in its path. New York's vast infrastructure, honed over decades of winter, was built on a bedrock assumption that no blizzard could match the city's ability to endure, adapt, and come roaring back.
But as the monster storm advanced, rolling west to east with a speed that outpaced warnings, a new reality crept in before dawn. The first flurries came gentle, dusting fire escapes and brownstones, lulling commuters into a false calm. Even seasoned forecasters at the New York State Climate Analysis Center, led by Dr. Henry Goldstein, tracked the system for days, but were unsettled by its sudden intensification. By midnight, the city's rhythm began to shift. Winds rose, an unbroken howl, snatching at awnings and snapping old trees. What might have been routine precipitation mutated into a wall of snow so dense that visibility dropped from miles to mere feet. The New York Department of Sanitation's legendary fleet mobilized at full capacity, plows weaving looping routes every hour. Yet their best efforts vanished into drifts, mounting faster than they could clear. The city's digital backbone stuttered. Subway platforms thronged with anxious residents, waiting on trains first delayed, then canceled as switch mechanisms froze. Above ground, emergency radio traffic grew frantic. The storm's snow bands, powered by a rare convergence of Arctic air and saturated Atlantic winds, pounded down. At times, snow accumulated at breathtaking rates, overwhelming city services. In Buffalo, on the state's western edge, the storm's full brutality revealed itself first. By sunrise, snow crested doorways and blocked access to hospitals, complicating emergencies already made severe by the cold. Reports emerged of snow accumulations reaching chest height, rendering plows ineffective and rescue efforts a hazardous gamble. Here, in a city usually defined by its kinetic energy, the storm enforced a sudden, unfamiliar quiet, a silence that carried not peace, but apprehension. Could anything, even the city that never sleeps, truly withstand an assault of such scale? As daylight filtered through low gray clouds, New York's vaunted defenses were shown not as immutable, but as desperately finite. The city's snow emergency plans, endlessly revised and rehearsed, fell behind by the hour. Deep within the Office of Emergency Management, Deputy Director Lisa Hernandez coordinated responses with a calm surfaced over mounting anxiety. Her teams barraged by distress calls. Multilingual alerts warned of imminent power cuts and transit suspensions. But in countless neighborhoods, cell service sputtered, and the hope of rescue faded to rumor. What overwhelmed the city was not merely the height of the snow, but its relentless pace. Dr. Henry Goldstein, watching live sensor feeds across Central Park and the Hudson, sent out bulletins. We're tracking accumulations rarely seen. Each hour brings new hazards. The boundaries between safe and at-risk zones blurred as major arteries and thoroughfares disappeared beneath unbroken mounds of white, confusing first responders and satellite navigation alike.
Urban logic began to fail. Accumulated snow overwhelmed drainage, setting up dangerous pools that froze beneath the drifts. Exterior pipes burst, geysers of ice, until substations shorted and electricity faltered. Each layer of chaos deepened the risk for those without steady heat. Seniors stranded, families watching thermostat digits plunge, entire apartment towers suffering without power. In Buffalo, the monster storm's snow reached such density and height that entire vehicles vanished within an hour. Dr. Rachel Vinome reported, "We're recording accumulations not seen in decades. This is a collision of atmospheric events magnified by urban complexity." Shelters filled rapidly. Makeshift warming centers opened in libraries and churches. But for every safe space, many more residents were left exposed. As cold seeped through old masonry and storm-battered glass, with each buried landmark and lost avenue, a single question surfaced citywide: what now? Subscribe for critical updates and analysis as New York's response struggles to keep pace, and as the storm's ferocity writes an unprecedented chapter in the city's history. Above, the storm raged in spectacle, but below, dangerous hidden risks grew more menacing. The ground, insulated by feet of snow, concealed a dangerous paradox. Where the surface froze, pressure below increased, squeezing aging pipes, weakening building foundations, and threatening domino-like infrastructure failures. Dr. Sophia Lee, an urban geologist at Columbia University, outlined, "New York is layered. Every surface conceals a critical system, not just water and sewage, but electrical, internet, steam. What the storm has done is stress them all at once, above and below. The deeper the snow, the greater the load, intensifying risks from roof buckling to underground ruptures. Signs emerged quickly. Roof lines buckled and masonry cracked as snow load mounted. Building supervisors scrambled to reinforce beams.
And some residents were asked to relocate from upper floors. Public transit infrastructure, especially in areas exposed to freezing, suffered, and elevated trains in parts of Brooklyn were periodically halted to prevent overloading the tracks. Even skyscrapers engineered to flex against wind and movement showed new strain. At ground level, entrances vanished behind ramparts of snow, while heating systems strained far beyond their normal capacity, stressing the city's power reserves. Underground, subway tunnels risked frost buildup. Intermittent flooding and freeze-thaw cycles tested the limits of cast-iron pipes. The use of de-icers and road salt in unprecedented volumes began to leach into sewers and utility vaults, threatening to corrode infrastructure intended to carry away meltwater, a compounding hazard, as Dr. Lee warned. With a storm this large, every fix risks introducing new problems. Stories of individual ordeal multiplied. Emergency crews carving passage to supply hospitals with fuel. Parents hacking paths to isolated relatives. Volunteers rescuing neighbors from snowbound cars. The monster storm's legacy was not a single disaster, but thousands of interconnected emergencies, every chain reaction amplifying the next. How can one storm unravel so many assumptions so quickly? What failures in understanding have been laid bare by this historic snowfall? Scientists point to compound hazard events, where each familiar risk amplifies all others. Every answer, it seems, only sparks more urgent questions. By the third day, New York's landscape was unrecognizable. Park benches, statues, playgrounds, all vanished under blankness. The city's famed towers only made more stark the scale of burial at the streets below. And for those managing the response, a stark realization emerged. The infrastructure's limits were closer than anyone knew. Critical response teams, coordinated by Deputy Director Hernandez, documented a surge in simultaneous breakdowns, found their generators threatened by ice, batteries struggling, and fuel deliveries delayed by impossible routes. Communication, the bedrock of coordinated response, was threatened as cellular towers failed or networks overloaded. In the storm's heart, radio replaced digital alerts as networks faltered. When people lose contact, fear multiplies, Hernandez explained. The tools meant to help, plows, trucks, became trapped or damaged as they collided with vehicles hidden beneath the snow. Across Midtown, high-rise tenants reported their heating equipment failing under constant overloaded demand. Perhaps most sobering was the loss of so-called safe zones. Newer buildings, neighborhoods above past flood lines, areas with modern grid systems, all brought to a standstill as the snow's relentless uniformity disregarded every boundary. Nature ignored our assumptions, noted Dr. Goldstein. Old maps don't matter. Today's peril is everywhere at once. Buffalo offered a preview of what relentless snow rates look like on the ground. Reports logged chest-deep accumulations that rendered shelters inaccessible unless dug out by hand. Entire blocks vanished beneath snow. In some cases, only the hum of generators revealed life inside. Satellite images revealed a chilling truth. The snow had altered the city's very appearance. Rivers blinked out. Parks blended into blankness. Lower Manhattan's cross streets erased by a landscape more Arctic than urban. Amid creaking infrastructure, psychic strain mounted. Stories surfaced of families trapped, medical staff overwhelmed, and residents isolated by impassable streets, an emotional blizzard to match the meteorological one. Where is the line between adaptation and breakdown, between resilience and surrender? As drifts rose ever higher and the cold deepened, one question dominated response centers. Is this the new normal or the warning bell for something even worse?
Landmarks, roads, cars, even street signs vanished in hours. Movement slowed to a crawl for public services as well as private citizens. Social media overflowed with videos of snow climbing halfway up street signs, of fire escapes sealed shut, of basements turned to ice boxes when sumps failed and water seeped in through old walls. Dr. Lee summarized, "We measure these events not just in feet of snow, but in the speed our capacity to cope disappears. New York is not failing because it is weak, but because the rules have changed overnight." With every passing storm band, the public and authorities alike struggled to assess how much worse and how soon. Behind the news cameras and the drone photography, among the warren of tenements and the towers paused by the weather, the struggle plays out in small private moments. Each hour of blackout brings another home to the edge of survival. Dr. Vinome, reporting from Buffalo, described families huddling for warmth, improvising insulation with blankets and spare mattresses to keep cold at bay. The strain touches every aspect of urban life. Deliveries cease, the city's elaborate supply chain undone by impossible roads. In neighborhoods already hit by scarcity, volunteers venture out on foot with food, medicine, and essentials, guided only by determination and hope. The psychological impact grows. Emergency rooms deal with frostbite and exposure, but also anxiety, panic, and exhaustion. Reports emerge of neighbors pooling limited supplies, of candles lighting windows where power is down. With the storm's onslaught, even secondary risks multiply. Carbon monoxide incidents rise as residents use generators or makeshift heaters indoors to survive. Firefighters struggling through snow-blocked streets fight not just flames, but buried hydrants and frozen water lines. Every problem seems to generate another. Deputy Director Hernandez recounted, "Every piece we repair leads to another breaking. We only understand the crisis when the storm abates and we measure what's truly changed." As residents witness the monster storm's power, not in abstractions, but in every snowdrift, every frigid breath, every unreachable friend, the realization grows. The old rituals of winter are gone, replaced by an ordeal offering neither easy passage nor a certain end. If you haven't subscribed yet, do so now and follow every critical update as New York pushes forward. Share your own story. How has this storm changed your sense of winter? Don't miss the next update for more expert interviews, data, and vital information. When winds subside and daylight returns, the emergency enters an uncertain phase. The snow, once a moving terror, becomes a stubborn, silent burden. Plows and shovels begin the clearing, but for every block opened, new obstacles appear. Doors blocked, cars lost, livelihoods on pause. Amid the gradual thaw, even experts face disarray. Dr. Goldstein and Dr. Lee, in a joint statement, stressed this is not a typical anomaly. It's a marker of increased risk, a warning. Our infrastructure, response plans, and social networks have been tested and found vulnerable. The old confidence must be re-examined in light of new realities. What does rebuilding mean when the very idea of preparedness proved inadequate? How long until the scars heal, not just on roads and windows, but in confidence and trust? The monster storm leaves more than snow and cold. It carves out a new memory, a public record, not just of hardship, but of systems and societies forced to adapt to forces beyond living memory. As night falls again, as families gather by the glow of candles, as rescue workers regroup and scientists analyze every clue, the lesson is unmistakable. No city is invincible, not against the fury of weather or the complexity of its own networks or the cascading impact of events at this scale. As policymakers and residents move forward, and as New York's story is rewritten in the harsh new vocabulary of the monster storm, a single certainty emerges. The city's fate is now tied even closer to the shifting patterns of an unpredictable climate. Stay safe, stay vigilant, subscribe, and share your experience below. How did Monster Storm change your world? What does it mean for the next time? This is not simply an ending. It is a warning, written in ice, silence, and the lives changed forever. The question is not whether we will face another storm, but whether we can learn fast enough, adapt deeply enough to meet what comes next. Amazing discoveries. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Share this video with friends and join the discussion on what these findings could mean. Your thoughts and questions are important, so let's explore incredible mysteries together.